My name is Wendy Hale. People say I am too calm, too quiet, too observant for their comfort. I don't shout, I don't threaten, I don't panic, I wait. I watch. And when the time comes, I act with precision. Some call me intimidating, some call me emotionless, but the truth is, I simply refuse to look away when someone is breaking in front of me. Maybe that is why our paths crossed the way they did. Maybe fate placed me exactly where I needed to be the moment you walked through my door. I remember the moment clearly. The rain pounding against the windows, the office lights flickering faintly, the halls half empty as if the whole building was holding its breath. And then you entered. Shoulders tense, hands trembling, eyes red not from the weather but from something far deeper. I could see the cracks beneath the surface the moment you stepped inside. You moved like someone trying very hard to stay invisible, but pain has a scent and fear, a shadow. I noticed the faint swelling under the makeup on your cheek, the slight limp in your step, the way you kept your arms close to your ribs, protecting yourself without even realizing it. You sat down without meeting my eyes. I didn't open the files on my desk. I didn't ask standard HR questions. I simply said, "Look at me." And when you finally did, I saw the truth you were trying so desperately to hide. "You're hurt," I said, not as an accusation, but as a fact. You tried to deny it, but denial is a thin blanket in a storm. It cannot keep anyone warm for long. "I'm fine," you whispered. "No, you were." "Something happened," I told you gently. "And you're carrying it alone. That's why your hands won't stop shaking." You froze, startled that a stranger could read you so easily. But I wasn't reading your expression, I was reading the exhaustion in your bones. The kind that only grows when someone has been surviving instead of living. When you still didn't speak, I leaned back in my chair and folded my hands. "I'm not here to judge you," I said. "I'm here to help you breathe again, so speak. Not for paperwork, not for rules, for yourself." You stared down at your fingers, twisting them until your knuckles turned white. Then you said the words I had been waiting for. "I understand, and for what it's worth, I didn't come here to complain. I just needed a moment to breathe." A simple sentence, yet it carried the weight of nights filled with shouting, objects thrown, hands grabbing, voices breaking your dignity like glass. You didn't have to describe it. I could hear it in the tremor of your breath. I could see it in the way you flinched when thunder rumbled outside. Trauma teaches the body to remember what the mind tries to forget. "Tell me what happened," I said softly. Your eyes flickered with fear. "If I say it out loud, everything changes." "Good," I replied, "because nothing changes if you stay silent." You inhaled slowly, and in that moment, your entire world trembled inside you. I watched your defenses crumble. I watched your lips part. And then, in a whisper so fragile that it almost disappeared into the sound of the rain, you confessed the truth. "I'm not safe at home." Silence fell between us, thick, heavy, undeniable. Even the storm outside seemed to pause. I didn't panic. I didn't react dramatically. I simply nodded, acknowledging the magnitude of what you had just admitted. "Thank you," I said. "You trusted me with something people often die carrying inside." You looked confused. "What am I supposed to do now?" I leaned forward, my voice steady as steel wrapped in velvet. "First, you are not going back there. Not tonight. Not ever until this is resolved." You blinked in shock. "Wendy, you can't make that decision for me." "I'm not making it for you," I corrected. "I'm making it with you, and you need someone who isn't afraid of whoever hurt you." Your breath hitched. I could see the panic, the disbelief, the fragile hope fighting for space inside you. "They'll be angry," you whispered. "They'll come after me." "They can try," I said, my voice colder than the rain outside. "But they will not reach you, not while I am standing between you and them." You stared at me as if seeing me for the first time, not as a calm HR officer, not as a stranger behind a desk, but as something far more dangerous to your abusers. A witness who would not look away. A protector who would not retreat. A strategist who would not make mistakes. A storm dressed in silence. And right then, I made a promise, not aloud but deep within myself. Whoever hurt you, whoever thought they could break you, whoever believed you would stay silent, they had just declared war. And I was not going to lose. The next 30 minutes unfolded like watching a fragile bridge collapse in slow motion. You sat there staring at your hands while I silently analyzed every detail. The bruise near your wrist, the small cut on your knuckle, the trembling in your shoulders whenever the office door clicked shut. You didn't know I had already started documenting everything in my mind, not to expose you, but to shield you. Every injury, every flinch, every swallow of fear was evidence, pieces of a puzzle I was determined to assemble. You looked like someone who had forgotten what safety even felt like, and it made something sharp twist in my chest. I finally spoke. I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Did they hurt you last night, or has this been happening for a long time? Your lips parted, but your voice cracked before sound came out. It's been a long time, you whispered. Years, it's just last night was worse. I nodded slowly, not surprised, just furious in a way I could not show. And what exactly happened last night? Your eyes glazed over with a distant, painful focus, as if you were replaying every terrifying second. It started with yelling, then glass, then he pushed me. My head hit the bookshelf. I don't even remember falling, I just remember the silence after. You inhaled shakily. He called me ungrateful, said everything I have is because of him, said I don't deserve anything. And then he grabbed my arm and your voice broke. I felt the temperature in the room shift. Calmness flowed out of me like a shadow stretching across the floor. That dangerous calm people were always afraid of. The kind of calm that meant something was about to happen, something final, something decisive. Look at me, I said firmly. You lifted your eyes, tears clinging to your lashes. He laid hands on you, he injured you, he threatened you, and he did it without fear of consequence. My voice was low, steady, controlled. That ends now. You shook your head quickly. Wendy, please, don't escalate it. If he finds out I told someone. He won't find out from me, I cut in sharply. And he won't get near you again, not physically, not legally, not in any universe where I exist. The certainty in my tone startled you. You weren't used to anyone standing between you and danger. You weren't used to being defended, protected, believed. It was written all over your face. I stood up from my chair, walked to the office door, and locked it, not out of fear, out of strategy. The sound of the lock clicking made you flinch, and I softened my voice. You're safe here. No one can enter, no one can interrupt, and no one can hurt you. You swallowed hard. Why are you doing this? Because I've seen this before, I replied. Too many times. People trapped in homes that pretend to be families. People punished for surviving. People silenced because they think no one will believe them. You looked at me with disbelief mixed with a tiny spark of hope. And you believe me. Without a shred of doubt. You covered your face with your hands, overwhelmed. I waited silently. I knew you needed that moment to break without being judged. When you lowered your hands, your eyes were swollen but your voice steadier. What do I do, Wendy? First, I said, you will not go back home. I'll arrange a temporary safe place for you tonight, somewhere he cannot reach you. You blinked in shock. You have that kind of authority. I don't need authority, I replied. I need purpose, and I have it. Your breath hitched, and after that, I said slowly, we gather everything, evidence, records, statements, medical documentation. Every bruise he gave you becomes a weapon in your favor. My tone darkened. And we build a case so strong that when the law hits him, it hits like a hammer. You stared at me with trembling desperation. He'll be furious. He'll come looking for me. A thin, cold smile touched my lips. Let him look. He won't get past me. Your mouth fell open slightly. You had never seen this side of me, this calm, fierce, protective edge. You weren't sure whether to be relieved or terrified, maybe both. But you weren't alone anymore, and that mattered more than anything. I continued. I need one more truth from you, and you must not hold back. Has he ever threatened your life? You hesitated, then nodded slowly, shame clouding your face. He said if I ever tried to leave him, he'd make sure no one finds me. My jaw clenched so tightly I felt the pressure in my teeth. My blood chilled, but my voice remained steady. Then he just handed us the final nail for his own coffin. Your expression collapsed into fear. Wendy, if he finds out we're planning anything. He won't, I whispered, because he has no idea who he's dealing with. I walked back to my desk, opened my drawer, and pulled out a sealed folder, not standard HR paperwork, but something far more useful. A private emergency file I kept for cases exactly like this. You stared at it, confused. What is that? A path out, I answered, and a plan to destroy the person who hurt you, legally, thoroughly, and permanently. You exhaled shakily. For the first time, relief flickered across your face. A small spark of courage, a shift in your posture. I saw the first sign of the person you could become without fear strangling you. But I also saw danger forming like a storm outside the window. Because the moment you decided to leave him, the moment you chose yourself, everything changed. And he would soon sense he was losing control. But he didn't know me. And he didn't know that I was already preparing for him. He had no idea the storm waiting for him. A storm named Wendy Hale. I had already anticipated the next move before you even spoke. The moment someone abusive senses even the slightest shift, the tiniest loss of control, they become unpredictable, desperate, and reckless. That is why I moved quickly with a precision that startled you. I opened the emergency file and placed a small black phone on the desk. "This is your new number," I said. "Untraceable, private. Only I will have it until you decide who else to trust." You stared at it like it was a lifeline you didn't believe you deserved. "Wendy, he'll know something is wrong if my number is switched off." "Good," I replied. "Let him panic. Let him feel even an ounce of what you felt every day." Your eyes widened. "Won't that make him angrier?" "It will," I said with a cold calmness. "But anger makes him sloppy, and sloppy makes him weak." I handed you a small notepad. "Now you're going to write down every incident you remember, every threat, every bruise, every moment he made you feel unsafe." Your hand shook as you held the pen. I don't remember everything." "You will," I said gently. "Trauma buries memories, but as soon as you start writing, they rise to the surface, and each one makes our case stronger." As you began writing, I observed you carefully. The way your shoulders trembled at the first line. The way tears dropped onto the paper, but you kept going. The way your breath broke, but your hand didn't stop. You were fighting through the pain, reclaiming your narrative word by word. And I knew that was the first step toward your freedom. I let you write for as long as you needed. Minutes slipped by, and then you finally looked up, eyes swollen, lips trembling. "What now?" "Now," I answered, "we leave the building quietly, without alerting anyone." You blinked. "We're leaving." "Yes," I said firmly. "I'm taking you to a safe location." You clutched your bag nervously. "What if he's waiting outside? What if he followed me?" "He didn't," I said confidently. "People like him never believe their victims are brave enough to speak to anyone. In his mind, you're still afraid and obedient." My tone hardened. "But he's about to learn how wrong he is." We walked to the elevator, and you flinched when footsteps echoed behind us. I placed a steadying hand lightly on your back. "Easy, it's just the cleaning staff." But internally, I was evaluating every sound, every movement, every shadow. I wasn't taking any chances. When the elevator doors closed, I turned to you. "If he tries to contact you tonight, ignore it. If he shows up, call me. If he threatens you, record it." You stared at me. "You really think he'll show up?" "I know he will," I said with a cold certainty that sent chills through the small elevator space. "The moment he senses he's losing control, he'll come running, and I will be ready." The elevator dinged, the doors slid open, and I guided you through the parking garage. I walked slightly ahead, scanning corners, listening for movement. You noticed. "You act like someone trained for this," you whispered. I didn't respond at first. Then quietly I said, "I've dealt with monsters before. Yours won't be the last." You opened your mouth to ask more, but I held up a hand, signaling silence as I led you to my car. I opened the passenger door. "Get in!" You hesitated, but the fear outside outweighed the uncertainty inside. You got in, and I closed the door firmly. I circled to the driver's side, slid in, and locked all doors. The engine hummed to life, and we drove out silently. The rain had stopped, but the tension hadn't. You watched me as we drove. "Where are we going?" "To a place he will never think to look," I said. A colleague's safe apartment, secure building, private access, cameras everywhere. He won't get within 10 feet. You swallowed. This is too much. I don't want to trouble anyone. You're not trouble, I said sharply. You are someone who survived hell, and now you're someone I refuse to abandon. You didn't speak after that. You just stared out the window with a sadness so deep it pressed against the air inside the car. When we reached the secure building, I parked in the underground level and guided you into a private elevator that required a code. When the doors opened into a quiet hallway, I led you to a door at the end. This is yours for as long as you need. You stepped inside with hesitant steps. The apartment was warm, clean, furnished simply but comfortably. You touched the back of the living room chair as if testing whether it was real. I don't deserve this, you said softly. You deserve peace, I corrected, and this is just the beginning. You sank onto the couch, clutching the emergency phone I gave you. Wendy, what if he calls? What if he threatens me again? My voice hardened. If he threatens you, he hands us evidence. If he begs, he confirms guilt. If he insults you, he exposes his nature. If he stays silent, he shows fear. I leaned forward, looking you directly in the eyes. He cannot win, not anymore. You stared at me with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. Why are you helping me so much? You barely know me. I paused, then spoke with a quiet intensity. Because I know what it feels like when no one believes you. I know what it feels like to be afraid in your own home, and I know exactly how dangerous silence can be. I straightened. But I also know how powerful truth becomes when someone stands beside you. Your eyes softened, and for the first time, a tiny spark of hope lit your expression. But the calm didn't last long. Your new phone vibrated suddenly, buzzing against your palm. You gasped. It's him. I held out my hand. Give it to me. You hesitated only for a second, then placed the phone in my palm. I checked the message. My jaw tightened. He's already in panic mode, I murmured. Good, you watched fearfully. What does it say? I read the message aloud slowly, letting every word hang in the air. Where are you? Why are you not answering? If you don't come home right now, you will regret it. Your face went pale. Wendy, he sounds angry. He sounds scared, I corrected. And fear makes him dangerous, but it also makes him predictable. I took a deep breath, my eyes narrowing. This is the moment everything changes. He doesn't know it yet, but his control over you ended the second you walked into my office. You looked at me anxiously. What do we do now? I met your eyes with a calm, fierce resolve. Now, we let him make his next mistake, and trust me, he will. You inhaled sharply. The room fell silent. Because we both knew the storm was coming. And I was ready to meet it head-on. His next mistake came faster than even I predicted. It was nearly midnight when the elevator camera pinged on my phone. I always had remote access, something I never explained to you because I didn't want to overwhelm you. But when the alert flashed, I felt a calm, cold readiness settle into my bones. I studied the live feed. And there he was, packing, shaking with rage, stabbing the elevator buttons with a violence that revealed everything we needed. His face twisted with entitlement and fury. He looked exactly like the kind of man who believed he owned you. Exactly like the kind of man who thought he could walk into any space and take what he wanted. He pounded the buttons again, shouting something the camera's microphone couldn't catch. I turned the volume up. His voice thundered through the room. Open, I know she's here. Open the damn door. You froze on the couch, hands gripping the fabric so tightly your knuckles paled. Wendy, how did he find the building? He didn't, I said calmly. He guessed. He drove around until he saw my car earlier. He thinks tracking me leads him to you, but he doesn't understand the consequences. Your breathing grew unsteady. He looks dangerous. He is, I replied, but this time he's dangerous to himself. The elevator had stopped on the second floor, locked by my override. He didn't know that. He thought the elevator malfunctioned. He kept screaming, slamming his fists, kicking the walls. Every second he acted like this, the cameras recorded everything. Perfect evidence. Evidence no judge, no lawyer, no jury could ignore. His madness was handing us victory on a silver platter. Your phone buzzed again, another message from him. I checked it, and a cold smile curved my lips. "He's threatening again," I said. "Good, he just keeps building our case." You covered your mouth, horrified as I read it aloud. "If you don't come home in the next 10 minutes, I swear I'll drag you out myself." Your body trembled. "Wendy, he will break the door. He will come here." "No," I answered sharply. "He will try, and that attempt is exactly what we need." I walked to the kitchen counter, picked up my second phone, and made a call. You listened in shock as I spoke with crisp, icy authority. "Hello, Officer Leland. This is Hale. I need a unit dispatched to Ridgemont Secure Towers. Trespassing, threats, possible forced entry attempt. And yes, camera footage is already recording. Send a team." You stared at me wide-eyed. "You know the police chief." "I know everyone," I said. "When it comes to situations like this, I make sure I do." As if on cue, your abuser reached the hallway outside the apartment. He started banging on random doors, yelling your name like a rabid animal hunting prey. The hallway surveillance captured every second. He punched the walls. He kicked the metal railing. He shouted threats loud enough to echo through the floor. You clutched your chest, trembling violently. "Wendy, he's going to find this door." "He already has," I said as the banging began, violent, heavy, malicious. "Open up, I know she's in there." You shrank back, tears filling your eyes. I stepped between you and the door instantly, my posture razor-sharp. "Stay behind me, do not move, do not speak." He continued banging, louder and louder, like a man possessed. Then he shouted something that sealed his fate forever. "If you don't come out, I'll kill you." You gasped. I didn't blink. I simply reached over and turned on the exterior camera live stream. "Perfect," I murmured. "That's the final nail." The hallway lights flickered as police boots thundered up the stairs. You heard them before he did. Suddenly the banging stopped. He turned around, confused, just in time for the officers to shout, "Hands up! Back away from the door." "What? No, she be yellowing just to me," he screamed. You grabbed my arm, terrified. I placed a steady hand over yours. "Watch," I whispered. "This is the part where everything shifts." He refused to back away. Instead, he tried to argue, throwing blame in wild directions, gaslighting, twisting the story, claiming you were unstable, that he was saving you, that you were overreacting. But the officers already had footage. They had audio. They had proof of intent to harm. They had threats. They had everything they needed. When the officers grabbed his arms to restrain him, he exploded, shouting, fighting, kicking, clawing. That only made their job easier. They wrestled him to the ground, cuffed him, and read his rights. You watched through the peephole, shaking uncontrollably. I rested a hand on your shoulder. "It's over." When they dragged him away, he screamed your name in rage, but his voice was muffled by the hallway and the weight of the law crushing him. His control over you shattered right there on that hallway floor, piece by ugly piece. You sank to your knees, sobbing with relief. I knelt beside you, guiding your breathing. "You're safe. He will not touch you again, ever." The next morning, we sat in a lawyer's office. You expected a battle. You expected complications. Instead, everything unfolded quickly because the evidence was undeniable. Threats, messages, video, audio, physical damage, witness testimonies. The case built itself. The lawyer leaned back, impressed. "With this amount of proof, the restraining order will be immediate, and criminal charges will hold. He's finished." You looked at me with disbelief. "Wendy, how did you know exactly how everything would happen?" I answered softly, "Because men like him never change their methods. They always reveal themselves if you give them enough rope." You whispered, "I never thought I'd see justice." "You're not just seeing justice," I said. "You're owning it." In the courtroom weeks later, he stood trembling as evidence after evidence played on the screens. His face drained of color. His lawyers tried to object, to spin, to delay, but the judge silenced them. When the verdict was read guilty on all counts, your abuser collapsed onto the defense table. You didn't cry this time. You stood tall, strong, unbreakable. The judge granted the restraining order permanently. The criminal charges ensured years of prison time. The financial penalties crushed the last remains of his power. You walked out of the courtroom with your head high. I walked beside you. You turned to me with tears, not of fear but of freedom. Wendy, you saved my life. I shook my head. No, I just handed you the sword. You chose to fight. You smiled weakly. What happens now? Now, I said, you finally live. You exhaled, a breath that carried years of suffocation, fear, silence, pain, endurance, and finally release. And with that, your story found its justice. Your abuser found his downfall. And you found yourself again. You stood in the sunlight outside the courthouse, free. And I knew you would never look back. And with that, the story finally finds its rightful peace. After all the suffering, after all the injustice, truth stood firm and justice prevailed. If this journey touched your heart or gave you something to reflect on, I would be truly grateful if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support is not just a button. It is encouragement, blessing, and strength for me to continue creating meaningful stories for you. Thank you for being here, and may peace and good health always stay with you.